Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome back if you have been here before. You are joining us for part 2, where I am in search of my top 5 tarot decks of 2023. In order to find those top 5 decks, I have created a rating category list. I am rating them on 5 categories. Here is the list, and also our rating criteria, how I am scoring these decks in each category. If you would like more details on that, make sure you check out the first part of this series. If you haven't checked that out and you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time to head over there, because I'm about to show the deck standing as we have now based on the decks that we covered in the first part of this series, the decks under $23. Here is that list now, and let's get straight into it for our decks under $30. So we are going to start with the Dame's Fortune Wheel Tarot. I purchased this deck back in October, so not too long ago, and I paid $24, and that is the current price on Amazon. So this is another low Scarabeo deck, standard size, so it shuffles just amazing. So for card usability, it's no question. It's going to get the party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 95. For card versatility, when I purchased this deck, I was really excited about it. I got it with the full-size guidebook, which you can get separately. And I was just, it really excited me. I think that as far as versatility, I think that it can be used in general readings and kind of take it on its surface level, or with the guidebook, it can get really deep and really you can learn a lot. So for that reason, it's going to soar quite high on versatility, but I don't see me using it in any other special spiritual practices around specific readings of a different type. So for versatility in that way, it scores quite low. So in the versatility category, I'm going to give it a low smiley face score of 59. For energy and personal connection, when I got this deck, I was so excited and I felt a personal connection to it right away. I think the energy of it is great. It reminds me of the Albano Waite. And if you haven't checked that particular RWS version out, we were just chatting about it in a Discord group that I'm in, and the coloring of that one is so beautiful. And it reminds me of this. It's got a similar color palette, and it reminds me a little bit of the JK Waite, which is out of print and really expensive. So if you're looking for that kind of energy, I think this deck brings it with its color palette. The figures on the deck kind of remind me of a Marseille style deck. So I really enjoy this deck. So for energy and personal connection, I'm going to give this a party face, and I am going to give this a score of 98. For readability, I think it reads really well. I think it's easy to see the meanings directly from the card, and I think the guidebook that you can buy separately, and it also has a little white book, I think is fantastic. It reads really well. So I'm going to give this a party face for the readability too, and I'm going to give it a score of 95. As far as its uniqueness, although it is, quite traditional in its style, I actually think this deck is very unique. And I would be upset if it wasn't in my collection. I think there are a couple others that would be kind of a good replacement for it, but not quite. So I am going to give it the smiley face for uniqueness and a score of 55. That gives the Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot a very healthy score of 402, and we have a shake up in our top 5 with our first deck in this video, and knocking out the Spiral Tarot from its 5th place spot and putting it in 2nd place. Next on the list, we have the Tarot of the 1001 Nights. I bought this back in June and paid $24, and that is the current price on Amazon. It is a Lo Scarabeo deck, so we have the same Lo Scarabeo cardstock that we've seen before, and it shuffles like a dream. It is standard tarot size. And so for card usability, it's going to get the party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 95. The artwork in this deck is very specific. There's a lot going on. So as far as card versatility, I'm going to score it somewhere in the middle here because I feel like I could use it in a variety of readings. But for just a general casual reading, I'm probably not going to pull for this one because there's a lot to read in the cards. There's a lot to look at. And so if I wanted kind of a quick answer, I'm probably not going to pull for this deck. I have to be in the specific mood for this particular artwork. So as far as card versatility, I'm going to give it a neutral face right in the middle, and I'm going to give it a score of 50. For energy and personal connection, I also think this is kind of a neutral area. I feel like the deck has a very neutral energy, neither good nor bad. So for energy and personal connection, I'm also going to give this the neutral face and a score of 50. It comes with a little white book, and there's not an awful lot in there. Although the cards themselves do tell a really interesting story, but you have to get in there and look at the artwork really closely to really get there. But once you do, the readability of the deck is very high. So I'm actually going to give this a smiley face for readability, but on the lower end. So I'm going to give it a score of 59. I think this deck is very unique. It has this kind of Moroccan feel, which I don't feel like I have in any of my other decks. And I also, sometimes I feel like I'm in Venice. And so stylistically, within my collection, it feels very unique. So I'm going to give it a party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 80. That is going to give the Tarot of the 1001 Nights a score of 289 and put it 12th on the list. Next on the list is the Wanderer's Tarot. So I got this one just recently on the 1st of November, and I paid $24, the current Amazon price for the deck. This is an India deck that has gone mass market. I had my eye on it when it was indie and didn't get it then, but picked it up when it was mass market. You can see the cards are a little bit glossy. So let's talk about card usability. We've got silver gilding on this one. So the cards are a little bit oversized, more oracle size than tarot size. It's got a really good shuffle. Cards are a nice thickness. And as far as card usability and shuffleability, it's also got a pretty nice box too for a mass market deck. So I am going to give it pretty high marks for card usability and give it a party face and a score of 90. For versatility, this deck, again, as we saw with the Disorder of Innocence, the other black and white one, I showed in the last video, that brings it down for points on versatility because I have to be in a certain mood for this deck. I have to be in a certain mood for this black and white color palette. I have to be in a mood for this kind of art style. So it's not as versatile as some of the other decks in my collection. So I am going to give it the neutral face for versatility on the lower end, and I'm going to give it a score of 39. Energy and personal connection. I don't really have a personal connection with this deck yet, as I just got it at the beginning of November, and its energy feels really neutral to me. I'm not really getting any good or bad energy off of the deck. Using it feels like a very neutral experience. So I'm going to give it the neutral face right in the middle at 50 points. For readability, it's actually a really interesting deck as far as readability, because I love the way that the minors are handled, and our numbers here are these little tally marks, and I actually love that about it. I actually think it makes it really readable in an interesting way. Now, that could make it readable in a more negative way if it's difficult to figure out what the card is, but I just think it's kind of cool, and I actually think it works really well, and I've never had any trouble kind of figuring out what I'm looking at. Although now I say that, this one, it looks a little confusing. Like, are we looking at pentacles here? Are we looking at, water here? So for readability, I'm going to give it the neutral face right in the middle again. I think I'm going to give it a score of 50. I think this deck is actually really unique. I don't have anything quite like this in my collection. Black and white with white on black. It's normally black on white. So this actually is pretty unique in that respect. And at the same time I got this, there's a couple indie decks that will pop up a little bit later on in this series that you'll see what the theme was when I got this one, but and those decks are sitting on the other side where it is black on white. So I actually think this is quite unique. So I'm going to give this the party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 93. That is going to give the Wanderers Tarot a healthy score of 322 points, bringing it into 9th place on the list so far. Next, we have the Dark Angels Tarot. This is another recent acquisition. I got this back in October, towards the end of October, and I paid $24, and that is the current Amazon price. It is a low Scarabeo deck, so when we look at the card stock, we're looking at a standard size low Scarabeo deck, which is a little shorter and a little narrower than a standard size, and excellent card stock. So for card usability, I'm going to give this the party face and a score of 95. This deck certainly has a very specific energy and vibe. So in that respect, it's not very versatile at all. For me, I'm going to need to be in a specific mood for this specific deck, and wanting to work with this specific energy. So we're going to give it the unamused face for versatility and a score of 23. For energy and personal connection, I think this deck has, for me, a really interesting energy. I really enjoy it. It's kind of energetic feel. And I feel like I have made a bit of a personal connection with this deck, even in the short time since it's been in my collection. So I'm actually going to give this a smiley face for energy and personal connection. And I'm going to give it a score of 72. For readability, it's actually a really good reader. Now, it does have the little symbols instead of the actual words for the suits in the minors. In this particular deck, it really doesn't bother me. I think it really works. I think it's really easy to know what card you're looking at, particularly because they've used color as well to denote the different suits. And so for readability, I'm going to give this pretty high score because I think the images really help tell the story as well. So I'm actually going to give this a smiley face again for readability and a high smiley face score of 78. And for uniqueness, it's also going to score pretty highly. This deck is pretty unique in its style and its energy for me. So I am going to give this the smiley face as well for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 76. That is going to give the Dark Angels Tarot a surprisingly high score for a mass market low scare bear deck, and it's going to give a score of 344 and put it at number 8 on the list. Next we have the Mind's Eye Tarot, and I got this recently in October for $24, and that's the current price on Amazon. I had this, I had an eye on this deck when it was indie. I think the Oracle rather than the Tarot. So when it went mass market, I scooped it up because I really enjoyed the art style, but not to the point that I wanted to pay the indie price. As far as card usability, this is on what I would consider the mass market linen cardstock. It feels a little plasticky, but it's really nice to shuffle. So it has the gold gilding, which is a little bit sharp, but as far as card size, shuffleability, it's very good. So I am going to give it the party face for card usability, and I am going to give it a score of 85. Now for versatility, I have to be in a particular mood for this particular style of art, and I am most likely to use it probably as a second layer to an oracle deck that matches this aesthetic. I'm probably not going to use it in any special spiritual practices. It's just going to be in readings when I feel like this particular artwork is the vibe. So for versatility, I am going to give it the unamused face and a rating of 35. For energy and personal connection, I haven't made a personal connection with this deck yet, and I think its energy is on the lower end of neutral. So I'm going to give it a neutral face for energy and personal connection, and I am going to give it a score of 40. For readability, the titles are really clear. I think for the most part, it's an RWS clone, so it's quite easy to read. The guidebook is actually pretty good. It lets you know what's going on in the artwork and a divinatory meaning. So readability is quite high. I'm going to give it a smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 74. For uniqueness, I feel like this artist's art style is quite unique. And so for that reason, I'm going to give the party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 80. That is going to give the Mind's Eye Tarot a total score of 314 and put it into 9th place between the Wanderer's Tarot and the Witchling Academy. Next on the list is the Chrysalis Tarot. This is a deck that I worked with last summer with Krista. I got it back in June for $25, and that is the current Amazon price. Cardstock is kind of stiff and a little thick, and considering that I used this deck for a lot of the summer, it's still not softening up much yet. Eventually I would imagine it will, but it still takes quite a bit of effort to get in that that bridge and to get a good riffle shuffle. The cardstock is good though, and it shuffles well, and it's certainly going to be durable. I had mine in this kind of yellowy gold color to match the front borders. So for card usability, I'm going to rate this quite highly, but it's not as pleasant to shuffle as some of the other decks we've seen. So I am going to give it a smiling face, but I'm going to give it a kind of a low smiling face of 61. Versatility. I actually think this kind of combines a bit with readability, because I think its versatility is limited, because I really wouldn't want to read this without the guidebook at hand. I don't think a lot of the images really give their messages right away for me without the help of the guidebook. So for versatility, I'm going to be using it in a reading where I'm happy to have the guidebook at hand. I'm going to read the meanings myself, spend time with them. So I'm probably not going to use it for anyone but myself. So that means for card versatility, it's a little bit more limited. And so I'm going to give this the unamused face of 23. For energy and personal connection, it took me a while. I had this deck in my collection for a little while before we started using it and really getting into it. I think it's a deck that requires time to get to know it. There's not an immediate personal connection. Its energy is very good though. So I am going to give it a smiley face for energy and personal connection. But right in the middle with a score of 69. So readability, I kind of touched on as with versatility. There's some name changes in the minors, in the quartz, and in the majors. So for readability, that means that I either have to remember it or have to reference the guidebook. I don't think many of them are that obvious, because we have spirals, and we have mirrors. Stones is a little bit easier to figure out. But overall, I think its readability out of the box is quite low. But then when you incorporate the guidebook, there's a lot there, which makes it very readable. So I'm going to give it a neutral face, and I'm going to give it a score of 44. As far as uniqueness, I think this deck is quite unique in the guidebook, in the way it looks at things. I think if it wasn't in my collection, I think that there's nothing really that would quite fill it the same spot. So as far as uniqueness, I'm going to give it a party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 90. That gives the Chrysalis Tarot a score of 287 points, putting it in 17th place between the Tarot of 1001 Nights and the Wheel of Change Tarot. Next is the Housewives Tarot. This I got back in March, and I got it on eBay for $10. It's currently available on Amazon for $25. And I don't think we can talk about card usability without talking about the box and the user experience. I love the box on this. It kind of looks like a recipe box. With this deck belongs to sticker on or print on there. And then the cards are designed to look like recipe cards. I mean, it's just fun to play with. We have our guidebook here in the front, and then there's like dividers here. I just think it's fun, and that definitely adds to the usability of the deck for me. So let's have a look at card quality as far as its usability. It feels a little bit smaller than a standard tarot size card. It shuffles really well though. The cards don't feel like high quality, but they seem to have quite a nice coating on that's not making them feel like thin cardboard. So as far as card usability, because of the overall general fun kind of user experience, getting this out of the box, and just I like having it on my shelf to look at, which is all part of the using experience. The cards are very nice to handle. I'm actually going to give this a party face for card usability, and I'm going to give it a score of 94. So let's have a look at the card now, as far as a versatility. I feel like this deck is quite versatile. I pulled it in a lot of different types of readings. I could use it in a general reading. I really enjoy using this deck. I think the meanings come through without the guidebook. I don't know that I've used the guidebook much for this deck. And I think you can use it just as it is. And I just think it's a lot of fun. So for versatility, I'm going to score this really highly again. I'm going to give it a party face for versatility, and I'm going to give it a score of 83. For energy and personal connection, this deck is also going to score very highly. I feel a personal connection to this deck and the characters in the deck. The energy, I think, is really good. So I'm going to give it a party face again for energy and personal connection, and I'm going to give it a score of 90. Readability, I kind of touched on in versatility. It's really easy to read. It's pretty much an RWS clone, but it does it kind of its own way. Because I think if you're a new reader and you didn't know the RWS that well yet, the images aren't giving you 100% the meaning of the cards. And so I'm going to give it the neutral face for readability, a high neutral face, and a score of 55. Scores off the charts on uniqueness. I think there are a few decks that have kind of done this in a way. I'm thinking of like the Frau Grand Duchess, and then there's the Oracle that kind of is a similar style, but I think those have come after this deck. And so there are a few other decks that kind of do the same thing, but I feel like this was the first one to kind of do it in this style and in this way. And I think the humor in this deck is just unique in the fact that it just makes me laugh and smile when I use it. So I'm also going to give this the party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 95. That has given the Housewives Tarot a high score of 417 points, putting it in currently in second place, pushing the Fairy Tarot out of fifth place. So our current ranking is the Cozy Witch at number 5, the Black Tarot at number 4, Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot at number 3, Housewives now in number 2, and the Influence of Angels still in our number 1 spot. Next, we have the newest deck so far on the list. I got this at the beginning of December on December 1st, and it just came out. So we have the Good Omens Tarot. Let's have a look at card usability for the Good Omens. I have had the opportunity to use this in a few readings since I got it. The cardstock quality is good. We have a slight, almost rose petal finish. The cards are very matte. The deck is a little bit thicker than a standard deck. Certainly not as easy to shuffle as some of the others we've seen, but also not really that difficult. So I am going to give this a neutral face for card usability, and I am going to give it a score of 45. I think that this is a deck that I'm going to use in specific kind of readings. The kind of premise of the Good Omens is we have the fallen angel and the heavenly angel kind of working together as friends over, millennia, and the kind of the story of their friendship, really. But within that story, there's kind of this idea of, the what is good, what is evil, and the kind of gray area in the middle. And I feel like those are the kind of readings that I'm going to pull this deck out for. As well as if I'm in the mood for, to revisit this particular show. I did watch the show when the deck came out to see if I wanted the deck, and I enjoyed the show so much. So I'm kind of grateful that this deck came out introduce me to the show itself. I think the deck is done fairly well. There are some cards that even though I just finished the series maybe a few days before I got the deck, I still think there are some cards that I was like, oh, I'm not too sure what this is supposed to be. And I needed the help of the guidebook, but the guidebook does explain it. So I think that this deck, you would need the guidebook to read with it. So for versatility, I'm going to give this the unamused face because I actually don't think it's that versatile. I'm going to give it a score of 25 for versatility. For personal energy and connection, I think the energy and my personal connection with this deck is in pretty neutral territory as well. I'm going to give this a score of 50, right in the middle for personal energy and connection. For readability, as I said, the suit names are actually changed. And when I was first flipping through the deck when I got it, I thought, okay, well, this makes sense. You know, the suit names. And then when I was using the deck, it was completely different than I thought it was. So we have vessels for the cups, which makes perfect sense. And we have humans for the pentacles, which also makes perfect sense. Although I don't know why the coloration is yellow. Or even these seem to kind of change as well. Then we have the suit of demons, which to me, because it's fiery demons, seems like it would be wands, and it's not. They're swords, and the angels, which seems to me would be swords, are wands. So I feel like they've kind of messed with the suit names and not in a very logical way. So for readability, I'm really going to give this the angry, frustrated face because I wish it, like, I don't know, followed a more logical way of thinking or followed my way of thinking. So angry, frustrated, but I'm going to give it the high end of that because I remember it, so I'm going to give a score of 16. For uniqueness, I think this deck is pretty unique. It's the only good Omens deck that there is, and probably, I would imagine, will ever be. I don't know. Who knows? And there might be another one out there. I don't know. This is the first one I've seen. I think the artwork is really well done and fully illustrated throughout, which is, we don't always get from the Insight editions. So I am going to give this a high smiley face for uniqueness and give it a score of 77. So that gives the Good Omens Tarot a total of 213 points, putting it in 25th place between the Celestial Tarot and the Grunge. On the list, we have another new one that's come in. This one I got November 13th, and I paid $25, and that is the current price on Amazon, and it is the Circe Tarot. So for card usability, this is another low Scarabeo deck, but the card stock on this one is a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've seen, but no less amazing. If all of my decks had this card stock and this card size, I would be pretty happy. So as far as card usability, it's going to get the party face from me, and it's going to get a score of 96. So for versatility, this deck obviously has a theme, and its theme is Circe, but beyond that, Greek mythology. So that might make it feel like it wouldn't be versatile, but I really do think that it is. I think that the cards are very readable just on their own, and then the Little White Book is pretty cool. With the different layers that it gives, the associations feel right to me for the most part. And I think this deck could potentially be very versatile. I think you could use it in everyday readings. I think you could use it in special readings. I think you could use it in special spiritual practices. I think the versatility of this deck is pretty high. So I'm also going to give this the party face for versatility, and I'm going to give it a score of 85. For energy and personal connection, I actually feel like this is on the higher end too. Certainly not to the party face level, but it's definitely gives me a smile. I definitely feel good energy from this deck. I definitely feel a personal connection to it. So I'm going to give it a smiley face towards the middle with a score of 63. For readability, the same reasons as versatility. I think you can read it really well just as it is, and then use the book to expand if you want to. The size is really nice. The font is really clear on the cards. The suit names have stayed the same in our traditional. So for readability, I'm going to give it the party face again, and I'm going to give it a score of 92. For uniqueness, I feel like this deck is unique, but there are a few in the same category. I feel like the art style is slightly unique within its kind of genre. I love the jewel tones in this. I feel like a lot of other decks that around the Greek mythos for some reason are kind of beige in color, kind of look a bit more vintage. This feels a little bit more modern, a little sharper on the eye. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it a high smiley face of 69. That is going to give the Circe Tarot a very healthy score of 405 points. And we have our second shakeup of this video, pushing the Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot out of third place and putting the Circe in its place. And that pushes, unfortunately, I know so many of you are rooting for Cozy Witch to be in the top 5, but unfortunately that has also pushed the Cozy Witch into 6th place. Boo! The next deck on the list is the Cosmic Tarot. I got this in October of 2023 for $25, and the current price is $25. This kind of just jumped into my cart on Amazon. I spotted it and it looks kind of cool. It is from, I think, 1998 originally. This is a US Games deck, but it's from, I believe, printed in Germany, so it feels just slightly different than some of the other US Games decks that we've played with so far. I think it's a little bit wider, and I actually think it shuffles better. I mean, they're both good, but the shuffle on this one particularly, and I think it's the card size more than anything, is really good. The tuck box also feels a little bit higher quality. It has that nice line in there that kind of makes it open a little bit wider. Very pleased with it. So for card usability, I think I'm going to give this one the party face. I really do like it a lot. And I'm going to give it a score of 93. Versatility. This deck has a very specific artwork, the art style. It very much feels like it was created in the 90s. And has that vibe about it. So as far as versatility, I'm going to have to be in the mood for this artwork. And that is a mood, but it's not every mood. So I feel like I'm pulling it out when I'm in that mood. I could see it perhaps working in a spiritual practice if I connected with a goddess or a deity that kind of felt like it had this energy. I can definitely see that happening. So versatility is a little bit more than neutral, I would say, but not too much. So we're going to give it the smiley face, but right at the bottom with a score of 59 for versatility. For energy and personal connection, I haven't really had a lot of time to really work with this deck and get to know it. And I haven't really been excited to do so yet, but looking at it now, it's got really good energy. It feels good. So I'm going to give it the neutral face. I'm going to give it a score of 52. Readability, it's actually a really good reader. So physical readability, it's really clear. Like the font is a nice size on the card. It's black on white, so it's really easy to read. And the little white book, it's all in English, and it gives a description of what's happening on the card and then how that relates to the divinatory meaning. And you really couldn't ask for more than that with like a little white book. And it's kind of beyond my expectations for a deck like this. So I'm going to give it the party face for readability, and I'm going to give it a score of 80. As far as uniqueness, I think this deck has a really unique style. I don't feel like I have many like this in my collection that quite have this feel about it. So I am going to give it a party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a low party face again with a score of 81. That's going to give the Cosmic Tarot a score of 365 points and put it in a tie with the Fairy Tarot for 7th place. The next deck on the list is the Tarot of a Moon Garden. You might have seen me talk about this deck on my channel a couple other times this year. I got this back in June, and I got it on eBay, and I paid $10, and the current Amazon price is $25, although it's a little difficult to get on Amazon at the moment because there is a new printing of it coming out. This edition was printed in Belgium. It's got an excellent cardstock, really nice to shuffle. So as far as card usability, this is going to get the party face because it's really nice to handle. It's a really nice size, and it's going to get a score of 93. I use this deck in readings that I'm doing specifically concerning liminal space. I think it does its job very well, but I don't use it in any other types of readings. It has a kind of a fae energy about it, but if I want to get that fairy energy, I'm probably going to pick a different deck. So this deck I use very specifically for a very specific type of reading. So for versatility, it's going to get the unamused face, and it's going to get a score of 19. I did make a personal connection with this deck. The energy, I would say, is somewhere in the low neutral range. I think I really did have to get to know it, and I don't know, it just doesn't have an immediately good energy. It's not bad. So I'm going to give the energy and personal connection a smiley face and a score of 63. The cards read really well. I've never had any problems in a reading. It has the little white book. I think they follow pretty closely to the standard RWS, so readability is very good. I've had good readings with it, so I'm going to give it a smiley face for readability, and I'm going to give it a score of 75. I think this deck is quite unique in the energy it has brought to the table for me, and in that work with the liminal space. I don't have anything quite like it that does exactly the same thing. So for uniqueness, I'm also going to give it a smiling face. I'm going to give it a score of 76. That is going to give the Tarot of the Moon Garden a total score of 326 points, putting it in 11th place between the Rebel Heart Tarot and the Wanderer's Tarot. The next deck on the list is the Tarot of Dragons. I got this back in July, and I paid $29, and the current Amazon price is $25. So let's have a look at card usability. This is a Llewellyn deck, so the card stock that we would expect from them. I think this is the first Llewellyn deck on the list so far, and the card stock on this one is just really good. It's really good. So I'm going to give this the party face for card usability, and I'm going to give it a score of 97. This is my only dragon deck, and I bought it for that specific purpose. When I wanted to bring that fiery dragon energy into my readings so that I would have a deck to pull for that specific reason. I do have a couple oracle decks that focus on dragons, but this is the only tarot deck. Now, I haven't really done that much. I haven't felt the need for that energy, but I still like to keep it around for when I do want it. But so for versatility for me, I am only going to use that for that specific purpose. So it's going to get the unamused face, and it's going to get a score of 20 for versatility. Energy and personal connection, not really its fault. I am a full-fledged air sign in every possible way. There's very little else really rising to the surface in my chart. Definitely not fire. That is my opposing sign. So the connection with this deck, I don't have it yet. The whole point is to kind of bring it in. So for energy and personal connection, right now, it's going to get the unamused face, and we'll give it a score of 22. As far as readability, I mean, it is a Llewellyn deck, so it has, the really nice full color guidebook. The cards are, follow the traditional suits and the traditional names for the majors. So for readability, it's going to score pretty high. I'm going to give it a smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 75. Uniqueness, I know that there are a couple other dragon tarots around. This one I really think is quite unique in the boldness of its colors. And I think that if I didn't have this in my collection, I would miss it, even though I haven't used it that much. I think that having this energy in my collection at my hands when I need it is very important to me. And I think a different dragon deck wouldn't do it quite as well as this one does for me. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it the party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 93. That is going to give the Tarot of Dragons a total number of points of 307, tying it with the Tarot Nuages for 15th place. So that's going to be our last deck for this two-part section for the decks under $30. In the next video, we're going to start with the decks around $26. We've covered everything pretty much in the $25 range in this video. Before we go though, let's take a look at our top 5 as it stands at the end of this video.